So welcome to everyone and thank you for attending. Today's presentation is in honor of Veterans Day and the men and women who have served our country with such great honor. MSC is a proud partner of the Guide Dog Foundation and America's VetDogs through our community relations activities. These are two great organizations that strive to make a measurable impact in our communities. As many of you know already, I serve on the boards of the Guide Dog Foundation and America's VetDogs. These organizations have a shared mission to help individuals with disabilities live without boundaries through the use of service and guide dogs. America's VetDogs provide service dogs free of charge to veterans and first responders in need. Now, while these dogs are provided free of charge, they certainly take a fair amount of time and money to produce, which is why MSC, together with VetDogs, America's VetDogs, has set up a donations page for our associates. Through the generosity of MSC and our community relations team, MSC's agreed to match the first $5,000 in donations. If you're able to, please visit the page. The address is vetdogs.org/MSC to help us on our journey to at least $5,000. We're about $2,000 of the way there. Joining us today from America's VetDogs are Jamie McGrade, Joe Worley, and Galaxy. I think you can all figure out who Galaxy is, but Jamie is the Associate Director of Development at America's VetDogs. Joe is not only a team member at America's VetDogs, but he's also a graduate of their program. Joe is a Marine, a veteran, and a true hero. Jamie and Joe, welcome to MSC.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us today. Good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of America's VetDogs, I want to thank you for welcoming us to speak to you all today. America's VetDogs is so grateful for its partnership with MSC. It is a rather newer relationship of ours. It started in 2019. And so this is just a great opportunity to introduce America's VetDogs and its mission to all of you. Since 2006, America's VetDogs has provided service dogs free of charge to veterans and first responders with disabilities. We are a national nonprofit. We reside in Smithtown, New York, and we really focus on custom training dogs to perform tasks that are going to mitigate disabilities for our veterans. We're training for retrieval. We're training to open and close doors, turn on and off light switches. We can train to remove socks. We also train dogs for hearing loss. For those that have served our country and have a loss of hearing, we have hearing dogs. And we also have dogs for those who experience post-traumatic stress disorder. We train for nightmare interruption. We are fortunate to receive funding from individual donors, foundations, corporations, service clubs, and events. And each and every team of handler, veteran, or first responder and their dog, it's more than $50,000 from the breeding, raising, training, and the lifetime of aftercare that is all involved. Everyone has been dealing with coronavirus, COVID-19, and I wanted to bring you all up to speed on how America's VetDogs has handled this situation. Back in March, we did have to send our staff home, and we also had to work rather quickly to move about 200 plus dogs off of our campus. We moved them into staff homes, but also into our volunteer homes. We relied on 200 plus volunteers. Thank goodness for volunteers is what I always say, who took our dogs into their homes and tried to keep up with all of their training skills and basic obedience that's needed to shape them into future assistance dogs. We canceled class. We canceled class March, April, May, June. We are fortunate now that we're able to conduct class. It is very much adapted in comparison to the way that it was coordinated on campus before. We were conducting classes on a 2-week program. It's now about a week. And it also incorporates remote learning that takes place prior to the student veterans' arrival on campus, but also when they go home. And, you know, it is all to keep with social distancing and to keep with the recommendations and guidelines that have been given to us from New York State. We still have a waiting list, and it increases as we speak because veterans have been home and they felt isolated before, but now they're feeling isolated and anxious more than ever before. So I think having this time during quarantine especially, it allowed veterans to realize that maybe having a service dog of their own is important, and they started to, you know, put out their applications to receive a service dog. I also want to speak on behalf of events. We are not really hosting them. They are either canceled or postponed, or just like everything else, they've gone virtual. I think two things are important to mention during my tenure. It's 8+ years at the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vet Dogs that really made us more well-known. One is our dog Charlie that was on the set at NBC at Rockefeller Center. Everybody got to see Charlie from puppyhood through adulthood, learn all the skills that he needed to one day help a veteran named Stacy Pearsall. And I think the second thing is what you're seeing on the screen, which is Sully Hw Bush. And he came about in June of 2018, was placed with President George H.W. Bush and kept him company and was his service dog for the last few months of his life until the president did pass away. And I think one of the most iconic photos that really put America's Vet Dogs on the national stage is that photo of Sully that I'm sure many of you have seen in front of the president's casket. I want to mention that there's another photo here of a statue of Sully that was placed at the Presidential Library in Texas. And we just announced yesterday, had an unveiling for a Sully statue that was placed on our campus at America's Vet Dogs in Smithtown. And I'm happy to say that MSC helped us with this effort. So thank you very much. Everyone always says, Jamie, how can I help? And so I say to you, you can volunteer. If you live in certain areas, you can puppy raise. We are always looking for puppy raisers, which are people that take puppies into their homes at 6 weeks and return them to us at about 14, 15, 16 months of age. And they basically do training and skills and take them everywhere, to the grocery store, to the soccer field, you name it. All of this is very, very important into shaping these puppies into future assistance dogs. So I encourage you, if you're interested in puppy raising or you know somebody who might be interested in doing so, you can go to vetdogs.org or guidedog.org to get information. I've personally temped dogs, which is a shorter time period of having a dog in your home. It's a 2-week time period. So you certainly can sign up to do something like that. You can raise funds. You know, we carry the technology to create your own personal fundraising page. So it would be wrong of me not to encourage you to do something like that. Know that your gifts, they're all 100% tax deductible. And while I have you all in front of me, I want to mention that we are planning a virtual race series in 2021. We'll have a run walk in April and July and also in November at this time surrounding Veterans Day to help raise money for America's Vet Dogs and the clients we're serving. We ask you to participate, to get your friends and family to participate too. And if you can, you know, create a fundraising page, we would love you to do so. And the moment we've all been waiting for, I'm so excited to announce that Joe is here with Galaxy. As you can see, Galaxy's having a good old time. Joe is a corpsman and was injured in Fallujah in Iraq in 2004 while serving with the Marines. Joe is going to speak about America's Vet Dogs and how it helped recover from his injuries. And I have the pleasure of asking Joe a series of questions and then, of course, giving you all the opportunity to type your own questions into the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer them as, you know, as best as we can. So thank you, Joe, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to start out by saying Thank you to you, because you've always been great. And thank you to everybody who's listening and everybody who showed up, because I don't think people realize how important it is to be able to take something like what's happened to me and be able to use it in such a positive way. It's so cathartic. It gives me that possibility of letting some of this stuff, do good in the world. And so it means the world to me. I'm so humbled to be here and be able to share this with you. So thank you very much, first of all.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Joe, I'm going to ask you, when did you decide to serve in the military?
I think that a lot of people, men and women, have a tendency to, at some point or another, at least touch on the idea of serving your country. And that sort of thing inside my head never really went away. And so when you sort of add in the more pragmatic, hey, that'd be a great way to pay for college, and hey, that'd be a great way to get out of Georgia, for the first real time in my life, it's sort of, and I had two of my friends go in around the same time. And so what's funny is my brother-in-law, who's married to my wife's twin, and my other best friend, we all went in 3 different branches. I went Navy and ended up with the Marines. My brother-in-law went Air Force, and my best friend went Army. So we all went in together, but we didn't go in together at all.
I hear ya. Maybe, I know you were injured while serving. I've known you a long time now, 8+ years. Do you mind sharing with everyone how you were injured and what your injuries are?
Absolutely. So I deployed to Fallujah, Iraq. And if you know, 2004, the Anbar province in Fallujah especially was absolutely just a hot spot. And there was a lot of combat seen in that area in that time period. And so my job as a corpsman is to be a medic with Marines. And so I was with 2-1 Marines, Fox Company 3rd Platoon, went to Fallujah, Iraq, 2004. And the first time I saw combat was just about the first time we went out, and that was March 26th. We ended up losing Leroy Sandoval that day, and that was my first big wake-up call that I realized for the first time ever what I had really gotten myself into. Having said that, I was where I needed to be. I was exactly where I needed to be. I loved my job. On Labor Day of that same year, September 6, 2004, I lost most of my second squad to a suicide bomber who pulled up in a van and self-detonated beside a 7-ton truck with my second squad in it. And 11 days after that, right around the time we were starting to wrap our heads back around finishing up the deployment, we had about 2 weeks left. The first vehicle in my convoy got hit with an IED, which stands for, of course, improvised explosive device. And I jumped out to go running up to help. And I remember passing the second Humvee, trying to get to the first Humvee, and getting hit on foot myself with an IED. I remember going up in the air. I remember hitting the ground. I wasn't able to hear anything because my ears were ringing. And I thought I was dead. Not because I'm pessimistic. I'm not a pessimistic type of person. In fact, most people who know me know I'm optimistic to the point of idiocy at times. But that's a choice. And so, but knowing what those things do and having seen that, I thought I was going to die. But I'm not somebody who gives up easy. I'm pretty stubborn, if you know me or ask anybody who knows me. So I rolled over to look and see how bad it was. And my left leg was traumatically amputated, almost completely. My right leg was banged up pretty bad. And I just went to work. I was able to put a tourniquet on the left side and a pressure dressing on the right side. And sort of the reality of the situation I was in sort of came flooding back. In some ways it was a relief when I got hit. I didn't realize how tired I was. I don't know if anyone can ever really understand it unless you've got a newborn baby or you've been to war. And I can't think of any other things that can wear you out quite as bad as that I've experienced, at least. And so I tried to get in the first vehicle after I got myself stabilized as well as I could, and I wasn't able to move. I realized I was going to end up hurting myself or killing myself if I tried. And so they were finally able to get to me, put me in the back of a Humvee, and we rode back. We also that day lost Christopher Ebert, who I'm friends with his brother, Brian, now. And on the way back, in the back of the Humvee, I started thinking about my family. And I had a 3-month-old daughter I'd never even held. I'd never seen her. She was born while I was deployed. And her name's Abby. She's 16 now. And my family. And so I was sitting there trying to sort of wrap my head around everything. And Doc Meany, who was the other corpsman, which is a horrible name for a corpsman, Meany, but he was helping me out while I was working on the survivor from the first vehicle. And I remember Doc Meany looking at me and saying, "You've got a lot to live for, man. She's beautiful." And I think that was sort of regrounded me a little bit. And so when I made it home on the 22nd of September and got to hold her for the first time, right before she got into the room, I remember trying to soak my hands to get my hands clean because I felt like I was never going to be able to get all the dried blood under my fingernails clean. And I was about to hold this brand new baby when this is the last thing that I wanted to do was hold her with dirty hands. And I just remember thinking that that's never going to go away. No matter how clean I get my hands, I'm always going to feel like that side of me, that part of me that had to try to save so many people in such desperate situations is also the same person as that guy that's about to hold a brand new baby. And I think that was the second moment for me that I really started realizing that I can make it work. And so that's my story of how I got hurt. And I did finally get to hold my beautiful baby girl and see my family. And luckily I had that good memory because after that, I had almost 36 surgeries. And over the course of the next year and a half, I really don't remember that much.
Joe, you basically, you saved your own life. It's like, it's an unbelievable story. And, thank goodness you did because you had beautiful Abby and you've had other children since. And so you have a lot to be here for, that's for sure. So you're injured and you endured so much, went through so many surgeries, as you said. How did you hear about America's Vet Dogs? When did that happen throughout this process?
So for me, I never really got depressed, not clinically depressed. I never wanted to take my own life, anything like that. But I just got so tired of asking for help. I've never been the person that needed help with anything. I mean, I was 6'4", 230 pounds, and I was the corpsman, which means that anytime anybody needed anything, they needed to move their house, they called me. They needed help with an injury, they called me. I was the go-to guy. And going from being that person to having to ask your wife, forgive me for being blunt, but for a bedpan, that's humbling. And not the kind of humbling that's like, funny, the kind of humbling that changes you. For me, I think long-term, that's good. It's good for everybody. Everybody needs to be sat down a peg every once in a while. And, but I did get to a point to where I felt awful. My wife's half my size. And I was eating like I was still in the military, but I wasn't acting like I was still in the military. And so I got up to like 260 pounds. And I felt awful asking for help with anything. And so I just sat around and did nothing for almost 2 years. I went on a veteran trip and I met Deuce. Deuce was a facility dog at Walter Reed under the care of Harvey, who's the occupational therapist over there. I think he's like 100 years old now. I'm saying that to be mean. He's not even near that. I love that guy. But he called Deuce and boom, the dog's entire demeanor changed. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, it was like watching Air Bud or Lassie or the old Benji show from way back in the day. I'm aging myself. And he started running through some of the tasks the dog was trained to do. The dog crawled up under a chair, did some retrieval, some mobility things. He showed me the bracing, which allowed me to get in and out of the floor. At that point, I wasn't ready to do that, but just blew me away. Here, this program exists, and I'm feeling like an awful person every time I ask my poor wife to help me with anything. And they're training dogs to do it. And I didn't even have a clue. I didn't know that this thing existed. I put application in, and then I got a phone call that I was invited to on-campus class, the very first on-campus class in 2008, October, to get Benji, my big, hairy golden retriever best buddy that literally and figuratively pulled me out of a wheelchair.
Yeah, so tell me, what was that like when you came to our campus? What was the program like since you were the first class? I'm sure, I've heard it's very different from what it is today.
It's insane, absolutely. First of all, I loved it. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect what I got. And what I got was a group of like-minded people and a huge supportive group of people at America's Vet Dogs. And obviously it's 2020, this was 2008. They made an impact on me. And so when I got Benjamin, it wasn't just Benjamin that made the difference. It was the people. And of course the food, because I'm a sucker for food. But for me, honestly, the biggest single impact and the things that I was so surprised by was how intense the classes were. And I mean that in a good way. I didn't realize that I missed that. I mean, and it wasn't quite like boot camp, but you know, they lie to you just like they do in the military. They're like, okay, cool, yeah, we'll be done by 5, but then they get on a roll and next thing you know, it's like 7 o'clock and everybody's still together, but you want to be there and you're enjoying it. I loved class. You know, it was one of my most fun 2 weeks that I had after I got injured. And obviously it was the start of a beautiful relationship because it didn't take me long. I had Benjamin maybe 3 weeks before I was like, this is a game changer. That 2 years that I didn't know about the program is unacceptable. I can't let other veterans go through that. And so that's the whole reason I started getting involved.
So when you were on class, how many students were there? Were they in different branches? Did they serve current conflict, or what was all that like?
So actually some of them were people that I saw in the hospital. And,
Wow.
and I think 1 or 2 of them, in fact, I was in the hospital with. And
Okay.
yeah, we had, I think we had 1 or 2 ladies. I think we had just 1 lady actually. And then a couple of Marines and a couple of Army. I think I was the only Navy guy because I'm clumsy and just happened to be the only guy in the Navy that got hurt. But there was a nice eclectic mix, but I always, as a Navy guy, I've tended to get along better with Marines than Navy just because they start talking Navy talk to me and I'm like, look, I know dirt and sand and guns and Iraq. You start talking boats and airplanes to me, you have lost me. So I enjoyed spending time with all the students. I loved it.
What's a typical day when you're a student at our campus? You know, you wake up and then what happens?
So we had about 12 to 14. I think we ended up graduating with 11 or 12. This was a long time ago. I didn't realize this was going to be my career when I was going through it. You know, they always say you never know you're in the good times till, you're past them. And I don't think I'm past them yet, but typical day, you wake up around 07 if you want to have a little bit of time to yourself and brush your teeth before breakfast. And you end up going, and they actually have a chef on staff. I've tried to hire him to move down to Georgia and just feed me, but he won't leave. His name's Kevin now, but
you can gain like a good 10 pounds on class, no?
10 pounds in a week with that man cooking for me in a second. So, so you wake up, you take your, you take your dog out first of all, and make sure your dog gets a chance to get rid of their, busy time. And then you go sit in the cafeteria area with the other veterans, and you get time to bond and spend time with each other. And that really helps. It's such a great way to start the day because you're going to spend time doing things with these people and having that time. You sort of find your friends pretty early in those days. And then you go through classes, and what they generally do when I first got there is you got your dog and then they taught you how to use the dog. And I think, what they do now is you get a lot of the training, and it makes it so much easier because you don't end up ruining and building bad habits. But
right.
You did a bunch of classes throughout the day, and then there was a lot of practical application where you try to utilize those skills that they're teaching you. And so now they have dog day, which I think is on day 3 after you get there. But with the new COVID standards, obviously they've ramped that up as well.
Yeah, dog day is pushed up a little bit further upon arrival. But I was just going to ask you, that is my favorite day. Yeah. When I'm actually on campus is dog day. I absolutely love it. And they've done it where it's like in private, behind closed doors, because sometimes it can be a rather emotional time. Yeah. But I've also had the opportunity to witness it, and it's amazing. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, but it seems to me like a lot of the bonds, like it seems so instant.
Yeah. These dogs are brilliant. And a lot of the things that I think these dogs are trained to do, in some ways, when they meet their new person and they step away from their trainer for the first time, I think they get it. It's almost like when a dog's been rescued or something like that. You know, you always hear these great stories about dogs that fall in love with people immediately because they were rescued by them. I think these dogs know that they're rescuing us. I think that they see the relief and the love and the hope in us when we meet them. And I think they're like, I can do this. You know, this is somebody that I can make really happy. I'll be a good boy for them, good girl for them.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me, you know, you're a two-time graduate of our program, and you received Galaxy not too long ago, but what does Galaxy do for you?
So he makes grilled cheeses. They're hairy but delicious. Yeah, no, I don't let him cook. Not after the great incident of 2018. So I'm making that up. So actually, he's trained for walking and mobility just like Benjamin was. Bracing, which allows me to get in and out of the floor. And then also, you know, the walking and mobility helps with stairs. He goes in public and you know, does all the things that, you know, that the dogs do in public as well. Include, you know, like the retrieval stuff is big in public. But also Galaxy is additionally trained for opening handicap doors. So he can both hit the button with his nose. Actually, I think you've got a thing behind you that shows doing that. So they can hit the button with their nose to open a handicap door, but they also have a hook that you can hang onto a door handle and the dog can pull the door open. Another really cool thing that Galaxy was trained to do was he can actually pull me in my wheelchair, which sounds ridiculous until you have to use it. I had to rebook a flight in the airport. And if you've ever been to Hartsfield International Airport, you know that if you rebook or even change seats, it seems like they send you to another gate that's on the other side of the airport.
Oh, God.
So it was a lifesaver. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised. He probably wasn't pleasantly happy about having to do it, but you know, he gets a treat at the end. And so by then it's just bygones are bygones. We're happy. We're good to go.
But the truth is he loves to work, no? I mean, that's what I find.
Absolutely. You put the vest on him and it's like, he's, you know, they're like people, having a purpose and having people that love and rely on you, it makes a difference. And these love to work. That was one of the biggest reliefs when I got Benjamin was I went from feeling guilty asking my wife, who never complained, by the way. I'm not saying that she complained, but I felt awful asking her, to all of a sudden, Benjamin is waiting on something to do. Like, you know, sometimes you throw your shoe across the room and just tell him to get it because he's just like, yes, got his shoe. And he loves me for it.
Yeah. We'll work for food.
We'll work for food. I'm the same way.
Absolutely. For anybody who just joined us, we are talking today with Joe Worley, who is a graduate of our program at America's VetDogs. And feel free to think of any questions that you want me to ask Joe and type them in the Q&A box on your screen below.
So let me actually introduce Galaxy right quick and get him to look at the camera if I can pull him away from this phone.
Yes, absolutely.
This is Mr. Galaxy. He's got a bubblegum nose.
Yeah, he's a handsome guy, Joe. He really is. I want to ask, how has having Benjamin, now Galaxy, helped not only you, but your family?
So I think that a lot of people don't realize that outside of mitigating a physical disability, which is the spark that got me taking care of myself again. I started going to the gym because of it, because I had help. I didn't feel awful every time I fell down and just, I remember I fell down one time, I just laid there. And it wasn't because I couldn't get up or because I didn't have help. It was just one more thing on top of a bad day. And it, you know, it's almost like when you're having like the worst day ever and then you pop a tire. In a weird sort of way, it gets funny at that point. You know, not funny, haha, but like, wow, here we are, you know? And then it starts raining and you got to change a tire in the rain. And you're like, I'm just going to call somebody at this point. Good grief.
Right.
And, you know, I didn't realize how tired I was. And then having Benjamin and now Galaxy, it takes a lot of pressure off the caregiver in the family, the person that has to step up. You know, it gave me a chance to get in the floor and play with my daughter. It gave my daughter somebody that could run and play with her, because a lot of people don't think about that. Like, that's my job as a dad, is to run and play with my kids. And Benjamin was like, I got this for you. And that's emotional for me, because I love being involved with my kids. And I'm at a place now where I can play with my kids. But, you know, because I have Abby who's 16, Izzy who's 13, and Luther who is 8. And, you know, he's a little goofball and likes to play around outside, you know, and I can do that now. But that's because Benjamin was the one that knocked that spark into me to get me trying again. The other part of it is the sort of the unspoken thing that dogs do for all of us. And I think that I know people that have come off anxiety meds. I mean, that's obviously not guaranteed. It's different for everybody. But if you told the VA that for $50,000, you could do this for a person, and they could do it with a pill, they'd probably spend $1 billion trying to figure out how to use it for veterans, because it would end up saving money in the long run. I can't even begin to imagine how much money they spend on veterans, you know, that just to mitigate the things that the dogs naturally do. The third thing is the social thing.
Okay.
I didn't realize how rough it was being constantly stared at. I'm not Justin Bieber. I'm not a 6-foot beautiful blonde. But I'm a 6'3" guy with shoulders, a loud mouth.
To be a 6-foot beautiful blonde.
Well, only if I crouched and grow my hair out. But yeah, but you get treated like, I mean, when you're standing in the line at TSA, there's hardly anything more interesting than a big guy with a prosthetic big metal leg. All the kids are literally pointing and saying, "Hey, mommy, what's wrong with his leg?" You know, and the moms are all like, "Hush, hush, hush," and I'm laughing, you know. But I didn't realize the difference it made when I had Benjamin and Galaxy, that I'm no longer the most interesting thing. And that's good. And these dogs are ambassadors between me and people that don't have the same experiences I have. And so I may not have grown up or lived the same life as you, Jamie, but dogs are something we have in common. And so I feel part of the people around me again. I don't feel isolated and separated the way that I did. And I didn't even realize that that was something I needed until Benjamin and Galaxy showed me that.
Absolutely. I've heard a lot of our veterans say that, like, having a service dog, you know, just brought the family back together.
Yeah.
That they were really on the brink of, like, is this going to work? You know, divorce, that kind of a thing. And
I doubted too.
Right. And you know, and lots of veterans have said, you know, that they couldn't even, you know, fathom, like, bringing their daughter or their son to, like, the local mall, because they just felt like everybody was looking at them. But like you just alluded to, you know, now really everybody is looking at the dog.
Exactly.
So, yeah, fantastic. Lots of questions have come
He's
in.
the beautiful blonde now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So Dawn says, thank you so much for your service. Do you allow strangers to pet Galaxy?
So I am a sucker for anyone who is polite. Especially kids. Polite children melt me. And if there's any possible way for me to take the vest off and let a child pet the dog, I absolutely will. I'm a sucker for children with Down syndrome or learning disabilities, because I know that things like that, they'll talk about it for 2 or 3 days. It can really just lift their spirits if they're having a rough day. And occasionally you see a kid and they're just at that age where, like, if I don't take his vest off, they're going to get their hands on him anyway, so I might as well just make it work. Generally, you know, you treat it the same way you would if you're going to shake hands with somebody. You know, you introduce yourself and you ask before you put your hands on someone. And it's the same thing with him. I will let people talk to him or pet him, but I try to make sure that he takes the vest off. But in his mind, that's sort of like his work outfit.
Gotcha. Either one of us can answer this, but I'm going to have you answer since I'm asking the questions today. What type of breeds of dogs are used at America's VetDogs?
So what type of
breeds do we use?
We used to do luck dragons, but they're extinct now. From Never Ending Story. That was a good one. It's never a good joke if you have to say it's a joke. But we have golden retrievers. We have German. We have yellow labs, black labs, chocolate labs. We have poodles, standard poodles, and mixes of those to sort of find the right temperament. And sometimes it's just because they think they'll be beautiful together. No, they've got it all planned out. They're smarter than I am. But and it's funny because when you say poodles, most guys are like, I don't need no poodle. Wait till you meet some of these poodles.
Oh, I love the poodles. They're my favorite.
Yeah, and they're hypoallergenic.
They're so smart that actually the first dogs that I temped were poodles, and I had such great experiences with them.
I'll take a poodle in a second next time.
There you go. There you go. We do typically give poodles though to those that have visual disabilities.
Yeah. I got a
They're
lazy
good,
guy.
they're good guide dogs, Joe. Anyway, Kate asks, have you ever had issues with having a service dog in public?
Yes, and that's always uncomfortable. I've had two big experiences because I don't mind being confrontational, but when it comes to that, I won't be confrontational because I've already won. There's zero purpose in me getting to an argument with anyone. If I step into a store, and this has happened a few times, they ask me to leave with the dog, and I say, I'm going to leave because you don't want me here, but I need you to understand that what you just did was illegal. He's treated like a prosthetic or a wheelchair. You couldn't take a prosthetic leg or a cane away from someone. You couldn't take somebody's wheelchair away. You legally cannot, as long as he's acting right, and he's not filthy or dirty, and my dogs never are, as you can see, he's a gorgeous boy.
Yes,
you know, they can't ask you to leave unless the dog is misbehaving. Having said that, one time we had a lady literally she held up a water bottle and was going to throw it at us, and we left. This was pretty early on. This was probably 2009. And my wife went in and gave her a piece of her mind, which I'd like to have heard because my wife doesn't cuss. So I'm sure that, you know, when somebody starts cussing at you, you can just discount them. But when somebody's using logic on you and yelling at you, you got to kind of listen to it. Hopefully they learn their lesson. And, but the other time, this poor guy, so there was a driver that was supposed to pick us up, and they are legally not allowed to say no to us on service dogs. I would have waved it off and reached out probably, but he made the mistake of doing it in front of Catherine and John Miller. So John Miller was on the phone with like the CEO of the company within about 45 minutes, I think, and probably had this guy's entire license suspended. You know, because you got to take that stuff serious. You can't.
Absolutely.
I mean, in that day, I had time to be late. I was not in a big rush. But for someone who isn't like I am, who can just roll with it, imagine having a doctor's appointment. Imagine having social anxiety, not being able to go out very easily, and then being shut down by a driver like that. I mean, sometimes that's all it takes for you to just say, forget it. I'm just going home. I'm not going out. I'm not going to try. You can't say no. You can't make it so difficult for people with disabilities to live their life. And these dogs are supposed to take that problem away and to help with that problem. So yeah, that guy had a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely. But how dare he?
Exactly.
How dare he? Okay, after you left class, what was it like when you first got Galaxy home? Was there more that he had to learn?
So, you know, it's almost like when you, you know, you bring like, for instance, that you have a kid come over to spend the night with your kid over the weekend or something like that. It's a pretty easy adjustment, you know, because the dogs are great and they want to make you happy. You know, a lot of it is just teaching them, okay, you don't go in the kitchen, you know, don't beg, don't sit, which they don't do that anyway. Actually, that's one good thing the dogs never do. They don't beg, unless you're slipping and letting your dog beg. Not me. I like to eat my food without guilt. And you know, a lot of it is just little things that you want your dog to do. They teach you how to train your dog to do things at home as well. And they'll also work with you because it's lifetime care. If I were to lose my vision or lose my hearing, God forbid, they'll come out and retrain. And, you know, and that's part of that lifetime care. And so a lot of it is just an adjustment of making sure the dog knows how to function in the house, as well as little things like, you know, I have a HUP command. It's like HUP, and it just means go up a level. If you're laying down, stand up. If you're standing up, get in the back of the car. You know, it's you know, it's just little things like that that you just teach each other, and you learn what they like, and you get on each other's schedule.
Right. I think it's important to know, though, these dogs, by the time our veterans and first responders come to our campus, they have had enormous amounts of training. So they really know, you know, they know what to do. It's really just how the student is going to learn how the dog is going to best help them.
Yeah.
So, okay. Courtney says, first off, many thanks for your service, Joe.
Thank you so much.
If I understand correctly, Galaxy is your second dog through America's VetDogs. What's the reason for getting a different dog? Do these dogs go into retirement at some point, or are they service dogs for their entire dog life?
So they are service dogs until they get to a point to where they need to stop. And so for some service dogs, depending on the work they do, and for guide dogs, which is a much more stressful job most of the time for dogs, you know, the work life is different for every dog, just like with humans. Benjamin was a tank, and, you know, he was just a healthy boy. And so he worked all the way until he was almost 12 years old. And when I retired him, it was definitely time for him to retire, but he still was able to do his job. Having said that, I'd say generally you get 10 years out of a service dog, you know, before they start slowing down a little bit. And the time to get a new service dog is whether you have changing and evolving needs that, you know, it's not a good idea to train. You know, if you've got a 10-year-old dog, getting the dog retrained for a new mobility issue is not a good idea, because the dog isn't going to be able to support the weight the way, you know, a young 2-year-old dog would be able to. And, you know, so mostly it's age. You know, I kept Benjamin until he passed last year, and oh heavens, you guys know I took just about a week off of work. That hit me about as hard as anything.
Of course.
And it's mostly age. You know, sometimes it's evolving needs, you know, like vision or something like that, that's harder to train a service dog for, that wasn't trained from that for the get-go, if you have a very complex need. But it's mostly age.
This is anonymous, did you have to wait long to get either dog, Benjamin or Galaxy? Was it a long wait? So
the wait time for you know, the first dog is a little longer, and that usually is because of the veteran or first responder themselves. The application process is pretty involved, because they need to make sure that you're ready to have a service dog. And so, you know, you need to be in a stable living environment, things like that. And so when that 2 year, you know, that year and a half, 2 year process is actually a decent time, because some people realize that it's not right for them in that time period. And then also, because the dogs are custom trained, sometimes your dog has been chosen pretty early, and they actually will, you know, they pair the dogs up based off of personality of the dog and your needs. And so, for instance, Benjamin was a slow, steady, great with babies. You know, if I'd been a runner, he probably wouldn't have enjoyed his life as much as he did. But he was a cuddle bug. He was the kind of dog you could just lay in the floor with. But yes, you know what? You could go on a hike and he'd be just fine, because, you know, we're going at a normal dog pace. And he was always pretty athletic and probably would have adapted to anything. Galaxy has a little more energy, but he also has that ability. As you can see, he's tuckered himself out chewing on a bone. I love to read, but I also love to work out and do things like that. And he's game for both of those. And I'll never forget, I had one of the trainers, when I was applying, he said, "You need to finish your application right now. I'm literally hiding this dog from 2 other trainers that are trying to get this dog for somebody else." And so I had like a 2-hour window to get it in. He's like, "I've got the tag number." They don't know his tag number under his ear. So, you know, that was a funny story, but he knew that Galaxy was perfect for me. He had the dog in his house for 2 days.
That's hysterical. Robert says, "Joe, thank you for your service. Are you able to have other pets?" Oh, this is going to be an interesting question already. When I'm reading this, I know at your house, this is interesting. Are you able, Joe, to have other pets in your house? Cats, small dogs? Why don't you tell them what animals you have at your house?
So I have fish and a pot-bellied pig. I have a cat, another dog, and I have a pig. And she is big and she is beautiful. And we love her, and her name's Ellie Mae. And the dog gets along with her just fine, and she gets along with the dogs, as long as I feed the pig before the dogs.
It's just, you know, here's the thing, Joe. It's just not every day that I talk to people and hear they have pigs as their pets.
I just have one pig, and she's beautiful. And she doesn't, you know, if you just got one pig and enough acreage, they don't mess the yard up. I would not recommend getting a pot-bellied pig on half an acre.
I I distinctly remember that you and a friend, I don't know, you created a house for Ellie Mae. She has her
Oh,
own
you give
house.
her a beautiful house. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a Hyatt over there. It's nice. If I get in trouble, I'm sleeping with the pig.
Joe, you make me laugh. You always make me laugh. Krista says, this is a good one. What does Galaxy do in his downtime when he's not working? Do you have a playtime routine? And are there other things that Galaxy likes to do?
He loves playing fetch, but only because he likes playing tug of war as well. So we have a rope, and you know, it's great because I can play with him like that, but the second I say give, he drops it. You know, he's never going to pull me off balance, but you know, it's a good workout for him and for me. You know, in fact, it's, you know, it's something that people in occupational therapy utilize for physical therapy. But he loves playing fetch, and my 13-year-old daughter and him are really great friends. I think he'd transition really well. You know, obviously, God forbid something happened to me, I think that he'd just go hang out with her for the rest of his life. A lot of his downtime is spent down, just like that. Because he, you know, like I said, I do a lot of reading and things like that in my downtime. And so, you know, he's used to hanging around a little bit, but he knows when I stand up and go out the front door, it's fun time.
Joe, I think it's important to know, what would you like to share with someone who's considering to get a service dog of their own?
I would say that it is absolutely life altering. And you know, there's never any hard feelings with anybody. We've had people show up in classes and say, you know, this isn't quite for me. But for every one of those, there's 20 people that are like, holy cow, game changer. Like I said, I was one of those. And I went in, you know, I didn't know for sure. I knew that I wanted one, but I didn't realize what the dog could do for me until Benjamin did what he did for me. And I started seeing the improvement in myself. And then my stress levels were down, and you know, my whole house felt more peaceful. I mean, I've never been like a yeller or anything like that, more of a brooder, really, or I get sarcastic, you know. I just felt sort of like a lot of the stress that I had built up that stemmed from me feeling inadequate. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I go from being this guy that everybody comes to being, you know, the guy that needs help with everything. And I felt like a bad husband and a bad father. And you know, Benjamin helped sort of fill the gaps there. He minded the gaps for me, for you New Yorkers.
Got it. What about, you know, since you had to apply, what was the application process like?
So the application process is pretty involved. You know, they need to make sure that you're healthy and, you know, healthy enough. You know, like, for instance, you have to get a tuberculosis test and things like that. And they need to know sort of like what you do and what your needs are. So for instance, they actually at the time send someone out to watch how I walk and what side I needed help on and the types of objects and things that I needed help with for retrieval. And so that's why, you know, Benjamin was such a big boy, because I'm a big guy, and you know, they knew they needed a dog that could, you know, help out with that. And so the application process is really involved because they, you know, this is a big deal and they want to get it right. And they know what they're doing. They absolutely do.
Yeah. So Angela says, thank you so much for your service. I appreciate hearing your story. Do the dogs stay with the veteran through the dog's lifetime, or are changes made beforehand? So, I mean, I'm at the point now in my tenure that I've seen people like you know, come around for their second service dog. And I know what you decided to do with Benjamin, but that was your choice. Maybe you want to tell everybody what your decision was for you and your family.
So for me, you know, Benjamin spent his entire life with me and helping me. And you know, in a weird sort of way, it seesawed. As he aged, I sort of got better and better and better. And so I thought it only fitting that when I was at my most needy, he was there. And so for me, it worked out. I had the support, I had the room, I had, you know, the family around that could help. And so I don't judge anyone who can't take care of their dog once they, you know, have to move on to another service dog, especially with vision issues and you know, the guide dogs. It's almost impossible to take care of two big dogs. You know, when one of them starts getting, you know, up in age, I can't imagine. Having said that, I stayed with Benji literally to the last second. And, you know, I recommend anybody who can do that, you know, try to do that. But anybody who can't, there's a load of people out there that would love to have what I call them sunset dogs. You know, dogs that are perfectly trained, they're beautiful, they're wonderful. And some of them with like the guide dogs, they're only like 8 years old, 9 years old. And, you know, and so they actually got a lot of life left in them. And so there's actually a list of people out there that would love to have a nice, calm dog to sit by the fire with them and occasionally go out for walks. And so the dogs, there's never a point where we're like, what do we do with this beautiful, well-trained dog who's getting a little bit older? There's always somebody to step up. And that's another thing that you could volunteer to do as well.
A quick story on my part, but one of my temping experiences was taking a guide dog, Tessie, into my home. She was age 11. She had retired. And for whatever reason, when she retired, she was not going to live with her handler. And so Tessie stayed in my home until Tessie's puppy raiser was contacted. And puppy raiser wanted Tessie back. And so Tessie went to live and spend out her days with her puppy raiser in Florida. So, I mean, can you imagine that you had this dog as a puppy and then you're getting the dog back as a senior? I mean, it's just the whole thing. It's just beautiful.
You're going to get me all the Clemps.
Sorry.
You're supposed to retire in Florida. That's what every American does, right?
Yes, a lot of New Yorkers specifically go to retire in Florida. This is true.
It must be cold when your joint starts hurting. I'm with you.
Me too. Yes, absolutely. How are you brought together with a specific dog? Do they choose you or do you choose them?
So the dogs are chosen. They have a team of people that they take the application process, it being so involved, and they see what your day-to-day activity is like. As well as your needs and your lifestyle. And they train for that. They choose the pairings for that, and they train for that. For instance, in my first class, there was a German Shepherd on class that went with a single active guy, and they were such an amazing pair. And I think her name was Liberty. And, you know, she was just like Xena, the warrior princess. This was just a big, beautiful black German Shepherd. And, you know, I just remember thinking, man, they go together like a married couple. And, you know, I saw that same thing with Benjamin. And I've met so many people whose dogs were just spot on, you know, with what they needed. And so, you know, I'm not exactly sure what their algorithm is. They might just, you know, flip a coin. But if they're flipping coins, they should play the lottery, because every time I've seen that, no, it's actually a very involved process. They're not flipping coins. But they always do a fantastic job with the pairings, but it's based off of what your needs are and what your lifestyle is like.
Fantastic. A lot of people are just saying, Joe, thank you so much for your service. They're excited to see Galaxy. And I personally just want to thank you for being so candid and honest with us today. It's always fun speaking with you. And every time I speak with you, I learn something I did not know. So I appreciate that. You know, today's bit was when you talked about what it was like when the children want to run in the yard, and how, you know, Benjamin helped make all of that possible. Very touching moment. But again, thank you, Joe. And I want to now turn it back to Charlie.
Thanks, Jamie. Let me start out with some thank yous before I forget. First of all, Joe, thank you so much. I'll repeat what a number of folks have already said for your service, but also for what you did today. Thank you to my company, MSC, and the Community Relations Group for setting this up. Clearly, the folks at America's VetDogs, and Jamie and Galaxy too. You know, I put in my notes to reflect a little bit, but Joe, your story just was so touching and moving. And aside from the questions that we got, I had so many colleagues texting me as you were speaking about how incredible the story was. So thank you so much. It's just my CEO talks about our why at MSC. And today, for me, was a great example of our why. We're not just in business to sell parts. We're in business because we want to have a greater purpose, and being connected to this organization and being able to help and having an opportunity like this is really a big part of our why. So, you know, on behalf of MSC and all of our associates, thank you so much. I had mentioned in the beginning our ability to donate. The page is up. As I said, it's vetdogs.org/MSC. Jamie, you did a great job talking about all the other ways that our associates can reach out and help through volunteerism. I know COVID's thrown a little bit of a curveball in there, but the two websites, there's guidedog.org and there's vetdogs.org, have a full rundown on how we can volunteer. With that, I'm going to close it up. I know there are some questions that we did not get to answer. If we can, we'll do our best. If they're anonymous, I'm not sure how we answer them. Maybe we can just post them, but we'll do our best to answer any of the questions that were not answered already. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.